have grown to become the primary providers in local service delivery and development. Essential and key services under the purview of the county government, but not all: health, water sanitation, roads, trade development and regulations, early childhood education, among other services that are relevant to the lives and livelihood of communities around the country. A more crucial contribution by the county government is the facilitation of participation and consultation of the people in the county governance processes. This has ensured a pursuit of democratically agreed priorities in service delivery and development, and a governance process that is responsive and sensitive to the people's needs and priorities at the grassroots level. Significant strides have been witnessed in the various sectors being managed by the counties. In the last financial year, 2020-2021, county governments allocated an average of 7.3% of their budget to agriculture, an increase of 1.3%, because we realize that agriculture is a major engine of growth. Among others, these investments have gone to mechanization, increased input, access to farmers, seed distribution, and extension services. But despite these milestones, the policy and legislative environment has been very friendly to these devolved functions. While recognizing the role of national government in developing legal frameworks that set standards and practices for the agricultural sector, the Council of Governors reiterates that this should be done in consultation with county government. In the health sector, malaria incident burden has reduced to 40%, 40 per 1,000. County governments have incrementally funded interventions against the non-communicable diseases, improved screening, diagnostic capacity, and improved capacity for care. The result of these health care investments are reduced waiting time for surgery, improved clinical outcomes, reduced referrals, and efficiency at county health facilities. Maternal and child health programs have also yielded marginal increases in skilled birth attendance, contraceptions, use, prevalence, and immunization coverage. We, however, do admit that the health sector has been plagued by funding and human resource challenges, issues both levels of government are appraised of. In the wake of these challenges, the county governments have remained at the forefront in the management of the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Our health systems have faced an unprecedented challenge and their capacity tested to the limit. However, county governments have remained resilient and continue to offer innovative solutions as we tackle the global crisis occasioned by COVID-19. Since the announcement of the first case of COVID-19, county governments have achieved the following. 1, increased isolation beds, increased installation of additional oxygen plants, procured more oxygen cylinders and oxygen concentrators, connected more than 3,000 beds to oxygen, among other measures that have been instituted to manage the pandemic. May I now turn to the early childhood development and education ECD sector. County governments allocated 4.97 billion in ECD sector in 2020-2021 financial year. With the demand for pre-primary education increasing, enrollment in the county ECD centers increased by 1.02% to 29,130 from 28,383. This includes 470 special needs units established across all the 47 counties for learners with special needs. Distinguished guests, as I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, this year's Devolution conference focuses on the subject of climate change and specifically looks at the role of subnational government in climate action. For the next 3 days, we'll look at a myriad of topics such as urban resilience, sustainable food systems, indigenous knowledge, renewable energy, gender and youth, and effective waste management, all with a climate change lens. These topics are both timely and relevant for these countries, and indeed the broader region development and sustenance. Africa's socio-economic development is largely based on agriculture and land-based economic activities. A vast majority of African population is rural-based and relies on subsistence agriculture and other basic socio-economic activities that sustain livelihood. These forms of lifestyle and livelihood rely heavily on stability and predictability of climate and weather patterns, among other environmental factors. It is therefore necessary that any strategies at whatever level that seek to address developmental and governance issues should consider environmental and climatical issues at county levels. Agenda 2063, the African Union's plan for transformation, commits to tackle the challenge posed by climate change through a broad-based approach that encompasses a variety of efforts to address the ever-present threat of damage to the environment and climatic changes. At the global level, therefore, climate change is a core part of the agenda of 2030 in respect of Kenya, which compels states to come together under key commitments in the Paris Agreement of 2015. More critically and relevant to us all is that local governments are identified as primary stakeholders and have indeed become important players in climate process. Indeed, subnational governments from all over the world have proved in a number of ways that their contribution and leadership is essential to help achieve the objectives of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. According to UNDP, 50% to 80% of adaptation and mitigation action necessary to tackle the impacts of the changing climate are or will be implemented at subnational levels of governance. Being closer to the people, subnational governments are well placed to identify the needs and strengths of their citizens in the battle against climate change. And this is why we are thanking the World Bank for putting most of the money, which will be inaugurated today, to the county governments, all the way up to the world level. This is because in most cases, subnational governments are functionally responsible for service provisions in areas that directly influence greenhouse gas emissions levels, such as transport, agriculture, environment, energy, industry, land, and resource management. I have to finish. Distinguished guests, at the national level, Kenya is signatory to various regional and global instruments that seek to protect the environment, fight climate change, and ensure that environmental rights are guaranteed and protected. Article 2, subsection 2 of Kenya's 2010 Constitution provides that regional and international instruments that Kenya is party to are part of Kenyan law. We also have environmental and land rights as part of our expansive Bill of Rights. This is complemented by the enactment of the Climate Change Act in 2016, which lays down the specific normative framework that is to guide climate action. Over the last few years, county governments have expressed their commitment to the climate action agenda and have, in the process, demonstrated that they are indispensable and dependable players in their process. The various measures that county governments have taken to contribute to the climate action campaign not only demonstrates the technical and sophisticated nature of the solutions needed to tackle climate change, but also the effectiveness and importance of the measures taken. First, county governments have developed and are in the process of developing specific laws on climate change. As at July 2021, 29 county governments and enacted climate change acts, and the remaining ones are at advanced stage of finalizing. Through the Climate Change Act, the county governments have established their own county climate change funds to provide for financing investment to reduce climate change. While all the counties are yet to take full measures to ensure effective climate action, the vital signs made by the county governments I have just mentioned will accelerate action in the rest of the counties through mutual learning and action. The impact of the changing climate on food systems, water, urban and infrastructure, energy, health, compel county governments to mainstream climate action in their county integrated environment actions. Distinguished guests, as I conclude, the county governments appreciate the National Treasury for including county governments in the development and rollout of financing locally led climate action. Such initiative will go a long way in supporting county governments to invest more in programs and projects that will caution vulnerable communities from the impact of climate. The Senate also needs to consider climate change when it is negotiating for the county shares of revenue. County governments bear the greatest burden, but county governments should also become innovative in tackling the effects of climate change. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, may I appreciate our partners who have supported this conference, who include County Pension Fund, AMREF, Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, UNDP, among others. Thank you for your great contribution to the conference. You are true friends of Devolution. A special thanks also go to our development partners, private sector, civil society, media, faith-based institutions. We appreciate your cooperation with the counties, and we anticipate deeper cooperation with you in the future. Distinguished guests, I wish you all fruitful discussions during the 2 coming days of the conference. With that long speech, which I'm not used to, may I now invite Waziri Dr. Friend Matiang'I to make his remarks, and invite our key address speaker, and also do the rest of the program. Thank you, and God bless you. Asanteni sana.
Considering that the law of diminishing returns may be setting in, I will execute this session with a measure of precision so that we can get going to the next level. Right Honorable Prime Minister Mzee Raila Odinga, the chairperson of the Council of Governors, and all of you governors who are here today, my cabinet colleagues, all of whom have been introduced, and my colleagues across the spectrum of national government responsibility who are here, the principal secretaries, directors who are with us here today, Mr. Speaker, and the members of the Senate, honorable members of Parliament, members of the county assemblies, distinguished delegates, including our development partners, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, you had invited us to participate in a panel on the impact of climate change on global peace and stability. We have submitted to the conference secretariat a very lengthy presentation and a paper on how we are approaching from the security point of view the challenges we face related to climate change. I would like to take this opportunity to request you, Mr. Chairman, to afford us an opportunity to engage in a much more detailed manner with the Committee of the Council of Governors that addresses security, because this matter is even calling upon us to redesign our national security strategy, because truth be told, as my colleagues who are from that sector who are in this audience know, some of the things we are having to deal with, or some of the things we are facing, are things we were not prepared to deal with 10 years ago. So even when our national security was designed, national security strategy was designed, there are a number of things that no one anticipated that we are having to deal with now. That calls upon us not just to relook at the strategy, but to see how better we can build stronger intergovernmental collaborations to address the challenges we face today and those that we are likely to face tomorrow. The question you asked us basically to answer was, how does it affect us from a security point of view? And in 2 minutes, Mr. Chairman, first, the destruction that we are facing as a result of climate change challenges. No one knew that at this point in time we would spend between 25% and 30% of our operational budget on climate change related security issues. What we are experiencing in Laikipia, what we are experiencing in Baringo, What is going on in most of North Rift today, the movement, the theft of livestock, the pasture and water resource conflicts in that region are all related to climate change. The challenges we face on our borders towards the north and the north and eastern with our colleagues across the border are all related to climate change. And as we go forward, obviously, we're going to have to relook at how we will increase our budgets to deal with this. Two, the greater impact is even in resource and institutional strain. If you look at the number of personnel we are deploying to this conflict, it is affecting and distracting us from the core challenges we face in the security sector. The question you ask every morning is, are you going to deploy to chase Al-Shabaab, or you are going to deploy to chase cattle rustlers and livestock problems in Laikipia and other places of the country? So I know it will affect also county governments in terms of how they look at resources, which means it calls upon a new framework and a new approach of budgeting and allocating resources for security, especially to address climate change-related challenges. We have outlined at length a new strategy and a new approach on how we are going to have to deal with this. We are going to build capacity and train better so that we are prepared for this. We are going to develop new structures for conflict resolution. I was speaking with Governor Nderito Mureithi in Laikipia and saying counties that are affected by this will have to start new frameworks of superintending over resource sharing agreements so that we can avert conflicts, which means we have to redesign conflict resolution mechanisms as we go along. Three, we are going to have to relook at intergovernmental alignment between us and county governments. For a long time, I must confess here that we have had challenges to support, for example, the county security committees and the county government's pressure on us to allow them to come up with their new security infrastructures. I think now we can't avoid that, and we can't hide from that responsibility anymore. We have to support county governments to come up with security arrangements to deal with some of these conflicts, because national government in and on itself cannot manage these challenges as it were. Fourthly, we have got to deal with resource alignment. We have to put our money where our mouth is. We are facing challenges which we cannot hide from, and we cannot overdepend on development partners. In our budgeting systems and in our frameworks of dealing with security, we as county governments and national governments, we must now debate how on a year-to-year basis we set aside resources deliberately to deal with the conflicts that are brought about by climate change. Now, in that lengthy presentation that we have filed with the conference secretariat, we have discussed the details of what the National Security Advisory Committee has decided to do and what the National Security Council would like to do, how we will deploy some of the resources we have in the country to avert and to quickly respond to some of the challenges. KDF is involved up in Baringo. We are trying to do some water pans. We are trying to see how best we can deploy the resources we have to avert climate change-related conflicts. Mr. Chairman, we need time to go deep into this, and on my own behalf and on behalf of my colleagues, we will be available to sit with your committee that deals with security to go deep into this, and I'm sure we will benefit more from your grassroots-based approaches in the manner in which we will have to redesign our national security strategy. I will leave it at that and do two important things. One, invite the Right Honorable Prime Minister to speak to us, and thereafter, I have been told that His Excellency the President has just logged in, and we will invite him to address us. But first, we start with the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, please.
The Chairman of the Council of Governors and the governors who are here, the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Senators, Honorable Fred Matiang'I and all the other Cabinet Secretaries who are here, development partners, diplomats, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, hamjambo. Hamjambo tena. I was in Makueni 2 weeks ago, and I knew that this conference was coming, and I promised the governor that I would come, because I've been a regular feature in these conferences since they started. So, but this Makueni conference has had history. Waswahili say, hayawi, 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 hayawi. Yeah, you know, it's not the first, it has been postponed so many times. But it will come. Now, when we're here, one cannot resist the temptation to do a journey down the memory lane and to see where we came from with devolution. Some of you here know our faces at the Bomas Constitutional Conference. We knew that devolution was one of the most contentious chapters at Bomas. It had, because of basically ignorance about devolution, it had very many opponents. And remember, at one session, when we were discussing, a gentleman stood and spoke so passionate about devolution that it was resolved that he should become the chairman of that committee. And he led that committee so efficiently that he became a marked person. Then one day, in front of his children, in broad daylight, some people just moved into his house and shot him directly while his children were watching helplessly. This is none other than the late Dr. Matiang'I. And today I'm going to request you, in honor of the late Dr. Matiang'I, to stand up and observe 1 minute silence. Thank you. We are celebrating a decade of this bold experiment with the 2 levels of government, which has been a remarkable journey for our people. It has been full of triumphs and challenges. At this 7th conference, you have decided to confront the elephant in the room of human survival, the issue of climate change. This is a clear indication that counties are coming of age and venturing into some of the greatest challenges humanity is facing now and the centuries ahead. I commend you for this. Climate change is bigger than the election coming up in 2022 or the ones coming that will follow in 2027 and 2032. It is a life and death matter that has cornered everyone all over the planet. I believe that climate is so important that going forward, we need to have a National Climate Council and situate it within the presidency. Kenya is experiencing higher temperatures, unpredictable rainfall patterns, increased incidence of drought and floods, and rising sea levels. Extreme weather events have led to loss of lives, diminished livelihoods, reduced crop and livestock production, and damaged infrastructure, among other adverse impacts. The key enablers of our economy, that is agriculture, water, energy, tourism, and wildlife, are extremely climate sensitive. If we don't tackle climate change, all our efforts to grow our economy will be in vain. County governments operate right on the ground. They are the first port of call when homes and farms get washed away by floods that were not expected. They are the first line of defense when crops fail in a drought that comes when rains were expected. Counties, therefore, have a critical role, particularly in educating our people on the reality of climate change. You have no option but to provide leadership on this matter. I am aware that to date, 33 counties have enacted climate change policy and legal frameworks, while others are at different stages of formulation of the same. I particularly laud the ASAL counties of Garissa, Isiolo, Kitui, Makueni, and Wajir, which have gone ahead and established county climate change funds. That is the leadership we are looking for at the grassroots. Today, there are several other transformative ideas whose time has come in Kenya. They are being resisted the way devolution was, but we will actualize them because their time is here. At this forum, I would like to share some thoughts on how we are going to renew and redefine devolution to make it deliver better to the people. Across the country, old and lingering challenges are imposing new pressures on government and leaders at both county and national level. Unemployment, deepening poverty, and rising cost of living have left our people disappointed and sometimes angry at their leaders. People need our help. Our duty as leaders is to breathe a new life and give new purpose to all institutions and structures. Where need be, we will have to be bold enough to abandon institutions and ideas that are not working and come up with new ones. For a start, we must strengthen devolution. We must devolve more resources to the counties. This should not be a divisive issue. That is what the BBI was intending to do. We must also overcome the challenge of insufficient allocation and delays in disbursement of funds by the National Treasury to counties, if counties are to operate efficiently. On this, there should be no debate. The funds will have to follow all devolved functions. This means the National Treasury will have to release all the funds for all the devolved functions at the appropriate time. There must be no two ways about this. The problem of overlapping and duplication of functions by state agencies, corporations, and regional development authorities will also have to be addressed conclusively. Addressing these issues need not mean antagonism between counties and the national government. On the contrary, they require a partnership between the two levels of government. There must also be a clear understanding that no level of government can succeed when the other is failing. Take economic growth, for instance. When the national economy is weak, counties will be disempowered. So growth, which leads to jobs and lowers the cost of living, must be a shared concern for both county and national government. Counties must be at the center of our envisaged growth and recovery for employment and job creation. In the years ahead, we must renew the contract between the people and their government, both county and national. People must feel that government, whether county or national, is there for them and cares about them. Each level of government will have to invent new ways to deal with purely national or evolved challenges. In the end, however, our people need their problems solved regardless of the level of government that is supposed to do it. My vision is to push for a strong partnership to make all our counties feel more a part of the solution of our national problems while helping counties solve their devolved challenges, and that empowers the counties to determine their own destiny. I would like to see increased agricultural productivity. This will not only increase incomes, it will also create more employment opportunities. So we will need to work together to ensure efficient and targeted fertilizer subsidy, a clear program for mechanization of agriculture, proper water management and irrigation, deployment of extension officers, and functioning systems of market access. I am extremely keen to see counties go past agriculture and delve into manufacturing and value addition. Today, only about 7 counties, all of them peri-urban, are involved in some kind of manufacturing. We need to go for robust manufacturing in all our counties to generate productive employment opportunities at national and county levels. One county, one product. We need to establish or revive agriculture-related cooperative societies to promote growth in the counties and absorb rural labor. We also need to put more money into county-level infrastructure development to attract investment in rural areas. Ladies and gentlemen, more importantly, counties must improve on own source revenue collections. This means counties must expand revenue bases. Counties with relatively well-established industry and service sectors do better on own source revenue collection. We must also push for full automation of revenue collection systems in all counties to seal revenue leakages and avenues for corruption. And we must commit to deal with the old-time national and now devolved problem of corruption. On this, action will speak louder than words in the years ahead. I am also aware that counties are struggling with the problem of marginalization, particularly of minorities in their borders. We will need to come up with clear mechanisms to make all communities within counties feel fairly treated and their voices heard. Finally, I wish to point out one extremely critical issue that we have to address, the question of spending priorities. We must devise ways to make counties spend the largest share of their revenues on development. The Public Finance Management Act of 2012 requires that at least 30% of the spending should be on development over medium term. Yet today, majority of counties spend more than 50% of their revenue on personal emoluments. I am aware, of course, that this is because of the amount that is being disbursed is insufficient, and that therefore need to increase the disbursement to the counties. This is where devolution is failing to change lives as it should. So we need to enforce and ensure adherence to the Public Finance Management Act. All these challenges and aspirations point out to two things. One is that we should not treat devolution as a fixed system. We should see it as an evolving system where the pendulum of powers and roles can swing back and forth, one way or the other, between counties and national governments. Secondly, the county government and the national government must work together in a partnership for Project Kenya, because none is more important than the other. Kenya is much more important, and therefore I'm talking about a partnership between two levels of government, that the national government must ensure that the county governments are working effectively, that we do not have 38 countries in one. We have only one country, and that therefore there must be measurable standards against which all the performance of all counties are going to be benchmarked. That we ensure that the service delivery is equitable throughout our country in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of agriculture, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of environmental protection. We must ensure that there's comparable standards across the whole country. And that should be the responsibility of the national government to ensure that counties meet that standard. That we first agree on a standard to be met, and then we have a way of evaluating to ensure that there's conformity with the standard which has been set and commonly agreed between the national government and all the county governments. I want to thank you and wish you a very fruitful deliberation during this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga. His Excellency the President will address us by video link shortly, but before that happens, I would like to request my colleagues on the podium that we can now take our seats before His Excellency addresses us. And while we are taking our positions down on the floor, we have a 3-minute video to be played on climate change that I will ask that it be played now before we invite His Excellency the President to address us. Please proceed and play the video.
Climate Change Action Plan to scale up efforts and to maintain a low carbon development trajectory. The plan includes commitment to restore degraded water towers, accelerate forest restoration, and to increase our tree cover to at least 10% of our land area in order to promote a sustainable blue economy, but also promoting green manufacturing.
You do not need to imagine. You have seen it all. Flooding, droughts, tropical cyclones, water management problems, rising lake water levels. These are not images of a prediction of future problems in a common movie. Sadly, it is a reality that if it is not happening in your locality, it is happening somewhere in the world right now. Climate change has been recognized as the biggest 21st century problem next to COVID-19. Globally and locally, the biggest contributor to the increasing population of refugees is attributed to climate change. According to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, climate change is defined as the change in the average atmospheric condition of a place over a long period of time due to natural and human-induced causes. And the results are devastating. They include reduction in agricultural production and food security, increased health risks, damaging of critical infrastructure, and interruption of provision of basic services such as water and sanitation, education, energy, and transport. In the recent updated Nationally Determined Contributions NDCs 2020, Kenya has estimated the cost of implementing mitigation and adaptation strategies by the end of 2030 will amount to $62 billion, and out of this, $228 million has been set aside for the adaptation programs aimed at supporting the most vulnerable sections of the population. The above global climate crisis can only be managed by increased efforts to reverse the effects and their causes in 2 words: climate action, which refers to the stepped-up efforts towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions and strengthening resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-induced impacts, including climate-related hazards in all countries. This war can only be won by integrating climate change measures into national and county policies, strategies and plans, and building institutional capacity for climate change mitigation, adaptation, impact reduction, and early warning according to the United Nations.
Tunajua ya kwamba kama Kenya Forest Service, bila kuwa pamoja na wananchi, hatuwezi tukahifadhi misitu. Hata kama tuko na forest rangers, hawawezi kuwa kiwango ya kwamba kila moja analinda mti wake.
Kenya, as a party that ratified the Paris Agreement, the International Treaty on Climate Change adopted in 2015, has taken up these efforts in earnest. A collaboration between county governments and the national government, with a priority being given to the world's lungs, trees and forests, is ongoing across the country. County governments have made several steps to address climate change, and they are making effort to adopt green economies in line with Kenya's Vision 2030. For example, counties have incorporated climate change interventions in their County Integrated Development Plans, CIDPs, and have progressively passed legislation to support budget allocation for climate action. 46 county governments have designated CECMs responsible for climate change to coordinate climate change affairs in the counties. 33 counties have so far developed climate change laws, while the remaining counties are at advanced stages of finalizing their climate change laws. The same county governments have established the County Climate Change Fund, CCCF, through these county laws. 6 counties have an operational CCCF and are contributing a percentage estimated 1% to 3% of their development budget into the CCCF kitty. The designated fund, which is ring-fenced, has made it possible for counties to establish tangible adaptation projects such as rock catchments, sand dams, livestock laboratories, and water pans, among others. Whereas counties are making strides towards addressing climate change, there are challenges that are being experienced at the sub-national level, which include funding. The county equitable share is limited, hence most counties have not set aside a percentage of development budget towards climate change initiatives. Uncoordinated climate action. There is need to train county officers on climate change mainstreaming. Additionally, there is need for interdepartmental coordination at the county level and collaboration between local governments and communities to support local resilience building and coordination between national and county governments in design and development of climate action initiatives.
Sinking investment, sinking underwater. This is because of destroying our forests. So apart from planting, I think we also have an obligation to actually protect what we have planted.
Alikuwa miti mingi, watu wakaribu wakakata msitu. Wakaribu wakachoma, lakini sasa tangu kaunti aliingia ikachukuliwa hatua hakuna sasa maharibifu. Sasa tunarudi kutekeleza. Na kutekeleza ni kupanda miti na kuongeza pia maarifa zingine kuzuia mmonyoko wa udongo
na kuelimisha watu.
To address this, the Financing Locally Led Climate Action Program seeks to support the government of Kenya in strengthening local resilience by building capacity to plan, implement and monitor resilience investments in partnership with county governments and communities, building county-level capacity for planning and implementation of local climate action, and strengthening national-level capacity for coordination, monitoring and reporting.
Mkikuja Makueni viongozi, mweleze watu kwanza, kitu ya kwanza wapande miti, ndio mvua ianze kukuja kwa wakati wake. Naona kutakuwa na mafanikio makubwa.
The willingness of county governments in Kenya to enhance climate action has been building momentum, and their commitment has been demonstrated through their participation as a unified delegation in the Climate Action Summit and Conference of Parties. County governments have committed to partner and share experiences with other countries on how to build subnational resilience, promote conversations and commitments that will ensure the country is on track in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 and strengthen the efforts toward climate action.
It's now my distinct honor and pleasure to request you, ladies and gentlemen, to be upstanding as we welcome His Excellency, our President, to speak to us by video link. Please be seated.
Great pleasure to join you today for the official opening of the 7th Annual Devolution Conference held here in this wonderful county of Makueni. I wish to thank the county government of Makueni and especially your governor, Dr. Kivutha Kibwana, for accepting to host this important event, but also to thank the people of Makueni for the very warm welcome they have extended to all our delegates from across our country, Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, this Devolution Conference has become a key platform through which both the national and county governments come together, reflect upon, evaluate, and benchmark their performance on policy and implementation, the legislative framework, accountability, but more importantly, service delivery. The conference also gives us an opportunity for the two levels of governments to demonstrate their commitment and to rededicate, to cooperate and to work together to achieve the dream of devolution. Ladies and gentlemen, of all the programs Kenya has implemented since independence to spur social economic development, devolution has had the deepest and most far-reaching impact on the lives of our citizens. Indeed, today, the devolution achievements and dividends are a visible reality in all parts of our country. Everywhere you go, across the country, you find more empowered communities and note major improvements in infrastructural development, healthcare, and basic services and service delivery. In the last decade, we have come a very long way on the devolution journey, but it remains work in progress. To deliver on the promise of devolution to Kenyans, we need to build on the successes and to strengthen areas where progress has been slow. And in this regard, I would like to highlight two areas where I believe stronger cooperation and coordination between the national government and county governments could enable all of us to reap the devolution dividend much faster and indeed more effectively. The first of these is to build on the solid public finance management legal framework. We have to ensure that the distribution of resources between and within regions is more equitable, and to focus more sharply on getting better value for the monies that we spend. The second is to work towards becoming a truly responsive government by promoting and increasing accountability at all levels and ensuring that citizens are actively engaged in decisions and actions that impact on their lives. Ladies and gentlemen, such an enhanced spirit of cooperation, coordination, interdependence, and support between and amongst ourselves has served us remarkably well since March of 2020, when COVID-19 first was reported here in Kenya. The two levels of government swiftly came together, and we forged a formidable alliance with our private sector, our development partners, faith-based institutions, and we formulated a comprehensive action plan to win the war against the pandemic. And as these efforts included the nationwide vaccination campaign that we now continue, I have no doubt that we shall win this fight. This, fellow leaders, is the approach we should take to tackle new challenges, including our challenge to climate change, the theme of our conference this year. So, ladies and gentlemen, turning to this, the 7th Annual Devolution Conference, I am delighted to note that the conference theme focuses on climate change, specifically the multi-level governance for climate change. And I further note that the aim is to strengthen subnational governments for them to act on climate change through development of a more robust and focused execution of mitigation and adaptation strategies. Climate change, ladies and gentlemen, is not a future problem, but a present and serious threat to all our counties and to all nations of the world. Climate change poses an existential threat to Kenya, even though our role in precipitating the problem is negligible. We contribute less than 1% of the current greenhouse gas emissions, yet we are the recipients of the bulk of the problem. To understand the gravity of the climate change threat, let us for a moment consider these numbers. Globally, Kenya has been ranked as the 31st most vulnerable country to climate change. Climate change impacts leads to loss of about 3% of our gross domestic product annually. In the last 2 years, we have witnessed the worst locust outbreak in 25 years, which has left about 1 million people food insecure in the entire Horn of Africa region. The rising water levels of the Rift Valley lakes, Lake Victoria, and the Turkwell Gorge Dam have displaced nearly 400,000 people in 13 of our counties and affected biodiversity, including our flamingo population in Lake Nakuru. And as we meet today, about 2.5 million people in 23 counties are facing famine because of drought. So, ladies and gentlemen, recognizing that no single nation can alone manage the challenges of climate change, the world came together and established the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Kenya is a signatory to the UN Framework Convention, and has participated and made significant contributions during the just concluded UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow, in the United Kingdom, which some of you present here today participated in. At the national level, my administration has adopted a comprehensive set of policies, rules, and procedures to address climate change. The effect, as you are all aware, has culminated in the development of the following key instruments. The first of these is the Climate Change Act 2016. The second, the National Drought and Management Authority Act of 2016. The third is the National Climate Change Framework Policy of 2018. The fourth, the National Climate Finance Policy of 2018. The fifth, the National Climate Change Action Plan 2018 to 2022. Sixth, the National Adaptation Plan 2015 to 2030. And seventh, the Green Economy Strategy Implementation Plan 2016 to 2030. These policies are currently being mainstreamed to sectors in forestry, agriculture, water, energy, waste management, and health. It is important to underscore that since most of these functions are devolved under Schedule 4(2) of the Constitution, it is critical, therefore, that the two levels of government work closely together if we are to execute them effectively. This effort, ladies and gentlemen, reflects our resolve and Kenya's resolve, as well as desire, to play our part in the international community's effort to address climate change, including preventing global temperature rises above 1.5 degrees Celsius. Further, Kenya recently joined the Adaptation Action Coalition and the UN Call for Action on Adaptation and Resilience. By partnering with these two institutions, we are sending a clear political statement that Kenya will continue to work with other like-minded governments, institutions, businesses, and civil society to accelerate action to moderate the negative impacts of climate change, facilitate adjustment to expected climate impacts, and to strengthen capacity to absorb and recover from climate change effects. I note with much appreciation that 33 county governments have developed county-specific laws on climate change, and that a few of them are providing strong leadership on this agenda. Allow me to cite the counties of Makueni, Wajir, Garissa, Isiolo, and Kitui, which have established policies and supporting legislation on climate change. They also have established the climate change units and put into operation a fund for climate change mechanism. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Climate Change Action Plan 2018-2022 spells out bold strategies that put us on a sustainable growth path. It further underscores the need for adaptation and enhanced climate change resilience for vulnerable groups, including women, youth, and persons living with disabilities, as well as marginalized communities. One of the key deliverables in the action plan is to increase our forest cover. This is in line with the Constitution and with respect to maintaining a clean and healthy environment for all. Action in this regard has already been taken, and within the very near future, we shall be launching our Forestry Action Plan that shall reveal and discuss the issues and what we have been able to achieve in this regard over the last 8 years. It is our obligation to ensure that our environment is protected and conserved, not just for us, but for the benefit of future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, our nation has a pioneering commanding lead in climate change action in the continent. For example, Kenya is a leader in the generation of renewable energy. We are ranked 5th globally on geothermal energy, where our potential stands in excess of 10,000 megawatts, while only 10% of this has been exploited to date. We are using innovative approaches to expand access to energy through off-grid solar power and other clean cooking energy sources, with the aim of delivering 100% clean cooking energy source by 2028. The Turkana wind farm is now fully operational with an output of about 310 megawatts of clean energy. Kenya has already outlawed the use, manufacture, and importation of single-use plastic bags as a way of protecting and conserving our environment. The 2 levels of government are investing on sustainable waste management projects to achieve a net zero plastic waste by the year 2030. Several counties, including Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa, have started reclaiming green urban spaces. Nairobi has successfully reclaimed Michuki Memorial Park, the National Arboretum, the National City Park, and I also encourage other counties to explore similar opportunities to create urban spaces, urban green spaces for their population. Ladies and gentlemen, in implementing these policies and programs, we require sustainable and substantial financial resources. Kenya has committed to reduce her greenhouse gas emissions by 32% by the year 2030. This will cost us in an excess of 6,874 billion Kenya shillings, or 62 billion US dollars. Out of this figure, Kenya will seek to mobilize 13% of this from domestic sources, while we expect to fund the balance of 87% from external resources. We are indeed hopeful that, unlike previous conferences, the Glasgow Climate Change Conference, COP26, will deliver on funding commitments which we will attract into a green climate fund. We will seek to attract green investments such as electric boda-bodas that we launched last week, and to tap into innovative financing such as blended financing to de-risk private investment. These investments will open new avenues for green manufacturing and clean job opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a strong policy and institutional framework for the 2 levels of government to work together to adopt and adapt to climate change and reduce the threat that it currently poses to our nation. Going forward, we need to strengthen collaboration and coordination on, amongst other things, first, leveraging on digital technologies to provide real-time climate-related data and information to our farmers and other stakeholders. Secondly, raising awareness and building capacity, especially on adaptation, with a particular focus on women who are at the heart of our crop and livestock production and who also are the most affected by the adverse climate change. The third is sharing information and good practice examples on mitigation and adaptation. Such examples include climate resilient projects such as mangrove restoration in Ganzi at the coast, the Masui rock catchment, and the Gaindavia Sand Dam in Makueni County, and Kina Livestock Laboratory in Isiolo County. Development and implementation of county spatial plans with a climate change lens is also going to be critically as a last measure. As the chairman of the National Climate Change Council, I will personally remain in the forefront to ensure that our desire to achieve a low-carbon, resilient, and prosperous future is realized. And it is with these few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, that it is now my distinct pleasure to declare this, the 7th Annual Devolution Conference, officially open, and to wish you every success and fruitful deliberations over the next few days. God bless Kenya. Asanteni sana.
I think we can do a better job than that and appreciate His Excellency the President. Let's get on our feet as we clap and really just appreciate that as well. Makofi tafadhali, ladies and gentlemen, at this moment as this